A long time ago, a little boy called Igor lived with his mother and father in a small house which was made of wood. Igor's family was very poor. His father was a woodcutter and his mother made clothes for rich people in the city. Their house was in the middle of a large forest in the north of Russia. In summer, the days were long and the forest was alive with the sounds of birds singing to each other. Igor's father taught him the names of the different birds and the boy soon knew all their songs. But in winter, the days were very short and there was deep snow everywhere. The forest became quiet because the birds left to spend the winter months in warmer countries. One winter, Igor became ill. His mother made special food and drink for him, but he only got worse. The doctor from the city came to see Igor and spent some time talking with the boy and looking at him. Then he spoke to Igor's mother and father. "He's very ill, but I don't know what's wrong with him. In this winter, many young children all over the country are becoming ill and dying, and nobody knows why. I'm sorry, but there's nothing that I can do to help. Give him lots of good things to eat and make sure that he gets lots of sleep." During the next few days, Igor got worse. He became iller and iller. He spent all day in bed and became bored with his toys. His father brought him little things from the forest to try to make him forget that he was ill, but he was not interested in anything. His face became white and he didn't want to eat. Sometimes at night, he had a fever and then he dreamt that he was flying above the forest, looking at his family's little house, far below him. One morning, after a very bad night, Igor woke up and found his father looking at him. "Is there anything that you want?" said his father. "Yes, there is, father," said Igor. "I miss the songs of the birds. Could you catch a bird and put it in a cage for me? If you put the cage above my bed, I can listen to the birds singing and remember the sounds of the forest." "Of course, little Igor," said his father, smiling. "I'll bring you your bird tomorrow." But he knew that now it was winter. There were no birds in the forest. This was the only thing that his son wanted, and he could not give it to him. "Perhaps you could make him a bird out of wood," said Igor's mother. "You could use one of those little pieces of wood that we usually burn on the fire." It was a cold, snowy day, and the forest trees were hard to cut. But all day, while he was working, Igor's father thought about how to make his son a bird out of wood. "Of course, it'll never sing," he said to himself. "But perhaps if it's very beautiful, little Igor will like it just the same." After dinner that night, he started making the bird. The first few times that he tried were no good. The finished birds were all too fat and too heavy to fly. He put them one by one on the fire and held his head in his hands. It was now the middle of the night, and outside, more snow was falling. Then he suddenly said to himself, "I know, the bird needs to be just 2 pieces of wood. If I cut the wood carefully, the bird can have real feathers." First, he took a piece of wood for the head, body, and tail. He began with the tail, cutting the wood into feathers with his right hand. Then, with his left hand, he smoothed out the feathers. Then he was happy with the tail. He took some more wood for the wings. He cut them out carefully. It all took a long time because sometimes the feathers broke and he had to start again. But in the end, he finished it. While the sun was beginning to come up, he showed the bird to his wife. "It's beautiful," she said, but it's not ready yet." She took a needle and some thread and carefully sewed the ends of the tail feathers and wing feathers together. Soon, the feathers were all together, just like on a real bird. Then she tied a long thread to the middle of the bird's back. This way, they could hang it above Igor's bed. They looked at the bird together. "Now that it's ready," said the woodcutter, "I'll take it into little Igor's room." Igor was asleep. Very quietly, the father hung the bird above the boy's bed. He stood back and looked at it. The bird turned slowly on its thread. The woodcutter went happily to his bed to rest after his long night's work. Later that morning, he went back into Igor's room. The bird was turning slowly above Igor's head. His son was watching the bird carefully. There was a light in his eyes for the first time in many weeks. "It's beautiful, father," said Igor. "Thank you. But I've never seen a bird like it before in the forest." "What's it called?" "That's a good question. I'll find out and tell you later." The next morning, when the woodcutter went into his son's room, he found the boy sitting up in bed, trying to touch the bird. The last time that Igor sat up in bed was many weeks ago, he thought. "So, what's it called, father?" the boy asked. "I'm still not sure," his father replied. That night, Igor's father went into his son's room and he quietly made the thread a little shorter. Now the bird was hanging a little higher above Igor's head. 3 days later, he found Igor kneeling on the bed, trying to touch the bird. His hand was very near it. "Have you decided on the name of my bird, father?" Igor asked. "Not yet, my son. I'll tell you later," his father replied. Again, the father went at night into his son's room and put the bird a little higher. 5 days later, Igor was standing on the bed and nearly touching the bird. "Father, help me. I want to make it go round," he said. "Go on trying. It's not as high as you think," replied his father. "And when will you tell me its name?" "Very soon, my son," replied the father. 7 days later, Igor's father was cutting wood when he heard strange sounds coming from the house. He ran quickly to his son's bedroom. Igor was jumping up and down on his bed, laughing. Above his head, the bird was going round very fast. "Look, father. I touched the bird," shouted Igor happily. "Now, please tell me. What's its name?" "It's called the bird of happiness," his father replied. And his mother, standing at the door, smiled to see her young son so full of life once more. Once upon a time, on a cliff by the sea there was a small church. Inside the church there was not much, only a few rows of seats and a portrait of Saint Demetrius on a white horse. But nearby lived an old woman called Zgudjana, who was as faithful as a saint. Every day she brought flowers to the portrait of Saint Demetrius, and she knelt before the painting and prayed. "Oh, brave Saint Demetrius," she prayed. "Keep my son Marcus safe and strong." Most people did not come all the way to this church, because it was cold and far away, but Zgudjana came and knelt every single day. From the sea come many beautiful things, but unfortunately it is also the home of pirates. And so it happened that, one night, a pirate ship passing by saw the little church on the cliff. But what the captain was really interested in was not the church, but Zgudjana's house next to it. "That house is easy treasure," he said. "There are no other houses for miles around, so there's nobody to stop us." So the pirates came to shore in search of their treasure. Zgudjana saw them coming. She had been unable to sleep that night and so had gone to kneel before the portrait of Saint Demetrius. When she saw the pirates, she ran to her house and said, "Quick, Marku, hide in the basement." So her son climbed into the basement and shut the door behind him. She moved a table over the door and hoped that the pirates would not find it. When they arrived, the captain said, "Ah, it is only an old woman. Where's your treasure, hey?" Zgudjana was very scared, so she told them immediately where she kept her box of jewelry. The pirates tied her up and found the box, but they weren't happy. "Is this it?" said the captain. "Surely there is more." They searched through the whole house, breaking and opening things, but Zgudjana was a simple woman, and her greatest treasure was her son. Just when she thought the pirates might give up, though, they found the door under the table. "Aha," said the captain. "I knew you were hiding something from me." And so Zgudjana had to watch as the pirates broke into the basement, tied up her son and took him away. "No, please let my son go. He is a good boy," she cried. "And he'll make a better pirate," said the captain. Zgudjana sat there tied up, crying as she watched the pirates leave and heard them sail away. It was many hours before anyone heard her cries. It was the priest who was going to the church early in the morning. When he found her, he quickly untied her and asked her what had happened. But Zgudjana wasted no time. She ran outside and looked out over the sea. She could just see the ship on the horizon, but it was almost out of view. She ran inside the church, knelt before Saint Demetrius and prayed. "Oh, brave Saint Demetrius," she said. "If you save my son, I will. I will light a lamp that burns forever." And on this day, faithful Zgudjana's prayers were answered. At that moment, Saint Demetrius and his horse jumped out of the portrait and landed in the church. Zgudjana couldn't believe it. The painting had come to life. Saint Demetrius rode outside, leaving hoofprints on the grass, and jumped off the cliff. But instead of falling to a watery death, his horse landed on the water as if it were hard ground, and ran quickly across the sea. Zgudjana and the priest watched as the saint rode under the rising sun and approached the ship on the horizon. The woman knelt down and kissed the hoofprint of the saint's horse, praying that he brought her son back. It wasn't long before Saint Demetrius reached the ship. A few minutes passed, and then a figure returned from the horizon, carrying Marku on the back of his horse. "My son," cried Zgudjana. "You saved my son." Saint Demetrius' horse flew in the air and landed back on the cliff, and Marku returned safely to land, where Zgudjana quickly untied him. While she cried and hugged her son, Saint Demetrius quietly returned to the church and climbed back inside his painting. Zgudjana never forgot what the saint did for her, and that same day, she went and bought a lamp and filled it with oil. She placed the lamp beneath the portrait of the saint, and every day she refilled the oil so that it burned day and night, all throughout the year. Zgudjana remained faithful her entire life, and when she died, Marku took on the job, refilling the lamp whenever the oil ran low. However, Marku did not live forever, and finally there was no one to watch the lamp. A few days after Marca's death, there was a strong earthquake in that region, and part of the cliff broke away and fell into the sea, along with most of the church. With the earthquake, Zgudjana's lamp finally went out. At least, that was what people thought. But soon stories started to come from local fishermen. Ever since that earthquake, there was a strange light seen at night, in the sea near the cliff. One brave fisherman decided to swim down into the water and find out who it was. And there, lying at the bottom of the sea, was Zgudjana's lamp, still burning faithfully. It is said that the lamp still burns today, although the ruins of the church are long gone. But if you go to a certain cliff on the coast of Malta and look closely at the ground, you might just see some hoofprints. In a little area west of Washington Square in New York City, there are many streets called places. Artists soon discovered these places and began living there. They liked the cheap rents and the old addicts. This area became a colony of artists, and it was called Greenwich Village. Sue and Johnsy had their studio at the top of a brick building. Johnsy was Joanna's nickname, and she was from California. Sue was from Maine. They met at an eating place and became best friends. In May, they opened an artist's studio together. In November, a cold invisible stranger came to the colony. She was called him Pneumonia. He touched a good number of artists with his cold finger, including Johnsy. Poor Johnsy. She was a thin little woman, and she lay quietly in her bed. She looked outside the window at the brick wall of the house in front of her. One morning, a busy doctor examined Johnsy and measured her temperature. Then he went into the hall and talked to Sue. "She has about 1 chance in 10, he said, as he looked at the thermometer. "She must want to live. Your friend doesn't want to get well. Does she think about anything special? Does she have a sweetheart?" "No, she doesn't have a sweetheart. But she wants to paint the bed Naples one day." "Well, I will do everything I can to help her." But when a patient begins to count the carriages in her funeral procession, then science and medicine can do very little. The doctor left, and Sue went to her room and cried a lot. After a while, she walked cheerfully into Johnsy's bedroom. She had her drawing paper and pencils in her hand. Johnsy lay in bed and did not move. "She's probably sleeping," Sue thought, and she began to draw a picture. She drew an Idaho cowboy with elegant riding trousers. It was an illustration for a magazine story. Young artists often draw illustrations for magazine stories to make some money. Suddenly, she heard a strange sound and went to Johnsy's bed. Her eyes were open now. She was looking out of the window and counting. 12, she said, and then 11, 10, 9. And then 8, 7. Sue looked out of the window too. What was Johnsy counting? There was only the brick wall of a building with an old ivy vine on it. It was autumn, and only a few leaves remained on the ivy vine. "What is it, dear?" asked Sue. 6, whispered Johnsy. "They're falling faster now. 3 days ago, there were almost 100. There goes another one. There are only 5 now." "5 what, dear?" asked Sue. Leaves on the ivy vine. And the last leaf falls. I must go too. Didn't the doctor tell you? What nonsense, said Sue. Don't be silly. You'll get roll soon. Drink some hot soup now. I must finish this drawing and sell it to the magazine. I need money to buy good food for us. No. I don't want any soup, said Johnsy. She looked out of the window and said, There goes another leaf. Now there are 4. I want to see the last one fall. Then I'll go too. Johnsy, dear, said Sue. Close your eyes and don't look out of the window, please. Tell me when you finish drawing, Sue. I want to see the last leaf fall. I'm tired of waiting. Sleep a little now, said Sue. I must go and call Berman. I need a mod of my drawing. I'll be back in a minute, said Berman was a painter. He lived downstairs in the same building and he liked Sue and Joanna. He was about 60 years old, had a long white beard and drank too much. Old Berman was not a good or successful artist. Sue found him in his dark little room. In one corner of the room, there was an old white canvas with nothing on it. Johnsy is very ill with pneumonia. She doesn't want to get better. She has some strange ideas and wants to die when the last leaf on the ivy vine falls. I'm scared and I don't know what to do. Old Berman started crying and then said with his German accent, What nonsense. She wants to die because leaves fall off an ivy vine. What foolishness. Poor little Miss Johnsy. Sue was sad and silent. Then she looked at Berman and said, I need a model for one of my drawings. Can you come upstairs? Well, all right. I'll be your model this time, but one day I'll paint my masterpiece. They went upstairs and Johnsy was sleeping. Sue and Berman went into the other room. They looked at the ivy vine fearfully. Then they looked at each other silently. Outside it was raining and it was very cold. Berman sat down and Sue began drawing. When Johnsy woke up the next morning, she said, This pull the curtain, Sue. Sue pulled the curtain and they both looked out of the window. After the wind and rain of the night, there was still one ivy leaf on the brick wall. It was the last one on the vine. The leaf was green and yellow. It is the last one, said Johnsy. It did not fall during the night. It will fall today and I will die at the same time. Dear, dear, said Sue. Think of me. What will I do? But Johnsy did not answer. Her thoughts were far away. The day passed and the last ivy leaf was still on the ivy vine. Then it started raining again and it was very windy. The next morning, Johnsy looked for the last ivy leaf. It was still on the vine. She looked at it for a long time. Then she called Sue. I was a bad girl, Sue, said Johnsy. That last leaf showed me that I was bad. I wanted to die and that was very wrong. Please bring me some soup now and some milk too. No. First, bring me a small mirror. An hour later, she said, Sue, one day I will paint the Bay of Naples. The doctor came in the afternoon and Sue spoke to him in the hall. Now she has 5 chances in 10. She must eat well and rest and she'll get better. And now I must see another patient downstairs. I think his name is Berman and he's an artist. He has pneumonia too. He is an old, weak man and there is no hope for him. He must go to the hospital today. He will be more comfortable there. The next day, the doctor came again. Johnsy is out of danger. Good food and good care. That's all, he said to Sue. And that afternoon, Sue sat on Johnsy's bed and said, I must tell you something, Johnsy. Mr. Berman died of pneumonia today in the hospital. The janitor found him a few days ago in his room. He was very ill. His shoes and clothes were wet and very cold. The janitor found a lantern, a ladder, some paintbrushes, and some green and yellow paints. Don't look out of the window, dear. At the last ivy leaf on the vine. It never moved when it was windy. Hot Johnsy, it's Berman's masterpiece. He painted it on the wall the night the last leaf fell. It is the end of Lisa and Alice's holiday. They are leaving the Hotel Oracle. They are leaving Greece. They are going to the airport. They are going home. Goodbye, Costas. Goodbye, Eleni. Thank you for our wonderful holiday. Come back to this island next year. Lisa and Alice are on the airport bus. The bus is stopping at another hotel. Some people are outside the hotel. They are going to the airport too. Look at that poor woman. She has 2 small children. She has a lot of luggage. And she has a pushchair. Let's help her. Lisa and Alice help the woman with her luggage. They help her with the pushchair. They help her with her children. I'm Lisa and this is my friend, Alice. Thank you, Lisa. Thank you, Alice. My name is Vera Brown. My children's names are Peter and Helen. I'm very worried. My husband is ill. He is in England. I must go to him. I'm going home. That's very sad news. I'm sorry, Vera. We're going to England too. We'll help you. Lisa and Alice are on the plane. Vera is on the plane too. She is sitting with her children. Look at this newspaper. Do you remember this painting? Yes. It's a painting from the island's museum. The artist is French. He's a famous French painter. The passengers are leaving the plane. Here we are in England, Vera. We'll help you at the airport. Thank you. You are very kind. Lisa, Alice, and Vera are in the airport. Alice is getting their luggage. This is our last bag. Now we have everything. Now we must go to customs. Please, I must go to the toilet. Vera is taking Peter to the toilet. Don't worry, Vera. I'll stay here. I'll stay with your luggage. Oh, thank you, Alice. Lisa, please go through customs with Helen. Wait for Alice and me in the cafe. Okay. Vera is at customs. A customs officer is searching her luggage. Alice hears 2 customs officers talking. She is surprised. That is Vera Brown, though. She's an art thief. She steals paintings. Yes, but there are no paintings in her luggage. Oh, a painting is missing from the Island Museum. And Vera is a thief. I must talk to these men. There's Alice. But where is Vera? Is she all right? Is Peter all right? Vera comes into the cafe. She is holding Peter's hand. Here we are at last. The customs officers are searching many travelers today. I'll take Helen and the pushchair now. My sister is going to meet me. She will help me with my luggage. Suddenly, there are customs officers and police officers in the cafe. One officer is searching the pushchair. He is looking in the frame. What is happening? Lisa, these are not Vera's children. They are her sister's children. Vera is an art thief. Do you remember the Islands Museum? Do you remember the stolen painting? The customs officers are looking for the stolen painting. The customs officers have the stolen painting. They are very pleased. Vera's sister has her children. She is very pleased, too. Well done, Alice and Lisa. There is a big reward for this painting. You'll get the money. That's great. We'll go on another holiday next year.